Hi, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome. Well, it's been a full day on Capitol Hill. We had the Attorney General, Barr, in front of the House Committee. They also had Mnuchin, Secretary of the Treasury, in another committee hearing. And of course, he was being drilled on, is he going to release the tax returns, which Congress feels that the law is on their side with that 1603 section of the IRS code. And of course, Mnuchin's basically hedging back and forth like he's not sure. So that's creating a certain amount of friction because he's trying to prevent the very thing that Trump wants. Now, he was asked directly whether or not he felt that his career in the Trump administration was in danger. And he said no. Now, that's a nice answer, but I don't think he believes it because we know that if Donald doesn't get his way about something, Donald will take it upon himself to take retribution. And I think, in all honesty, he's looking at Mnuchin to protect him. But Mnuchin may not be able to protect him, especially if the law goes in their favor and they get the tax returns. I think the reason that it's interesting because Bernie Sanders finally admitted now that he is over $1 million net worth. In other words, he's a millionaire. Now, of course, he's always been talking in a socialistic tone about helping the poor. And everybody kept wondering, why are you delaying your tax return? Why don't you show it to us? Because he finally admitted that when he shows it, it'll show him to be a multimillionaire. And that could be an embarrassment because he's talking about the middle class and how he understands them. And yet he's now a multimillionaire. So a little hypocrisy there. Well, I think that Donald's afraid of two things. Number one, you might actually find that he's not worth anywhere near what he said he was. And two, he's probably paid very little, if any, tax over the years. And that could be an embarrassment. Also, other secrets that can be revealed if you really understand his income tax. And trust me, the House will find people that are expert in the tax code and will look through that thing and say, wait a minute, what did he do here? And maybe what he's afraid of is that they're going to find out how phony he has been. And then the IRS is really going to sit down and audit him and collect back taxes. OTC, how are you? Thank you for subscribing to our service here. Thank you. And that's what I think is Donald Trump's biggest fear. You know, it's like somebody that's got a dark secret. Maybe they, I don't know, maybe they smoke marijuana, but they never take it out in public. They don't take it to work. But every now and then you see them, and they seem to be in a different state of mind. And they never want anybody to come to their house. You know, their friends and their employees are wondering, well, why don't we ever get invited to his house? The reason is very simple. Because he's got a big, marijuana growing thing in the basement, and he doesn't want anybody to know about it. And so consequently, he doesn't want anybody coming to his house. Huh? Well, if you get a chance, ask Dev. He may know why that's happening. I don't. I don't know why that's happening. Shouldn't happen, but I don't know why it's happening. But all I'm trying to say is that I feel that there's things that Donald's hiding. And you remember one thing, Donald said he was great at construction and building a wall. Well, the only wall that Donald Trump has successfully built in his whole career is a wall around his finances and his business dealings. He's created a tremendous wall there. But what's happened over the last 3 years or 2.5 years is that he's beginning to see that wall crumble. Oh, okay. Okay, hi, how are you? Thank you. He's beginning to see that wall crumble because as more and more people are digging into him, they're saying, wait a minute, Donald, we know something that you're not telling us. And I don't think that Donald, as I said before, he doesn't figure out a B plan. I mean, most people would realize that the moment you say, I'm going public and becoming candidate for the president of the United States, you're going to come under a scrutiny that few people are going to come under. And the reason you're going to come under that scrutiny is because everybody wants to know more about you. Where before they didn't even know who you were, they could have cared less, and there wasn't anywhere near the scrutiny that you're now going through. And this is a problem with people. So anyhow, that's what I'm seeing here. I'm seeing a situation where Donald is afraid that more and more of this wall is crumbling around him. And his deceptive practices over 30 years or 40 years is going to become more apparent. We're going to find out just exactly how much of a thief he's been, how much of a crook he's been. He's just never been convicted. Doesn't mean he hasn't been a criminal. Just means he hasn't been convicted. Now, let's go to Barr. AG Barr is trying to walk a tightrope. He got his job because he told Donald in a 19-page single-spaced letter that the president could not be indicted while in office, which could be tested in the courts. Donald liked that. Now, why wasn't Rosenstein, the acting attorney general, appointed permanent attorney general? Well, very simple. He wasn't the kind of person that Donald thought he could control. He thinks he can control Barr, and he may be able to. But trust me, the House will get that report, even if they go to court. They'll get that report unredacted. They'll see the whole report. Then it'll be up to them to decide what to make public. Okay? And I have a feeling that Donald's very scared of that, as is AG Barr, because he then has to explain to the president how he screwed up and how he missed the ball and how they ended up getting the report unredacted. Okay? And we know that just because the president says you're doing a good job doesn't mean anything. Praise from the president of the United States is hot air. Just the other day, he said, the Secret Service, they're great. They're the best in the world. Oh, by the way, I'm firing the director of the Secret Service. Okay. Now, who do you think was responsible for making the Secret Service great? Think it was Donald Trump? Hell no. Do you think maybe it was the head of the Secret Service? Maybe. So you have to ask yourself, something's screwy here. And the reason is very simple. Anybody that disagrees with Donald Trump is going to get fired. It's become so apparent now that anybody that disagrees with Donald Trump is guaranteed to be fired. Bill, print out my, show notes. They finally arrived. Okay. Let me get them. Talk to us. Oh, here they are. They're right over here. All right, we're printing that out. As soon as we get it, we'll talk about it. Deb, are you able to get on the microphone so we can hear you?
I'm eating.
Well, stop eating. You know this is broadcast time. You don't eat while we're broadcasting.
I gave you show notes.
So you think that gets you off the hook? You think that gets you off the hook, Deborah? Wait a minute. For some reason, it didn't print. So let me find out why it didn't print. That's because it's probably such a massive load of notes.
Technically, you wouldn't have to print them. You can just read them off that document. So,
well,
that's up to you.
That's true, but the problem is that if I do that, I won't be able to see my glorious face.
Why? Okay.
Yes, I know I could reduce the page. Huh?
I mean, just do side-by-side tabs.
Come on.
Anyway, let me bring it back up, and then I will talk about some of this stuff.
Yeah, talk about it because here my printer's going. Okay. Anyhow, folks.
No, I'm gonna, because I found an interesting article today, and I'm gonna read that one.
All right.
You handle the rest.
Forgive me, folks, if I don't read everything on the right-hand side. The print is kind of difficult because it's white on black instead of a white background. Black. Huh? And
what?
What I'm saying is in the remarks department, it's a black background and white print.
Oh, you mean on, I was like, I thought. Okay.
It'd be easier if it was the other way around, folks, where it was a white background and black print. Be easier to read, but you know.
I agree, OTC. I don't know why he keeps doing it. All right. Okay, so it was a article called "America Isn't Full." Our country, President Donald Trump says, is full. America is the 146th most densely populated country on the earth, sandwiched between Venezuela and Kyrgyzstan. Still, immigration is about more than land. People who say America is full are arguing that the costs immigrants impose outweigh the benefits. Those costs can be cultural, economic, or even political. I'm the son of an immigrant, and I grew up in Orange County, California, a particularly immigrant-heavy enclave in an immigrant-heavy state. When I return home, even now, Orange County's health is obvious. The unemployment rate is 2.6%. Startups fill office parks, new construction dots the roadways. Growth can carry its own challenges. Housing prices have skyrocketed. Traffic on the 405 is a nightmare, but it beats contraction. Yet, through our suspicion of immigration, much of America is choosing contraction. Here's a fact that should get a lot more attention than it does. America is growing more slowly than at any other time since the Great Depression. The culprits here are many. The population is aging, birth rates are falling, and immigration is flat. But altogether, America is adding 900,000 fewer people each year than was our 20th century norm, with 2018 showing the slowest rate of growth in more than 80 years. But it's the geography of America's great growth slowdown that's really worrying. A new report from the Economic Innovation Group shows that America's population growth is increasingly concentrated in an even smaller number of counties, while the declines are spread across even more counties. So, though America's population is growing overall, half of U.S. counties are shrinking each year, and over 50 million people, or 15% of the U.S. population, live in counties that have shrunk over the past decade. The story is even scarier if you're looking at adults in prime working years of 25 to 54, a particularly important group for driving economic growth and tax revenues. Fully 80% of counties have seen population losses among prime working age adults over the past decade. The authors note that if the current trend continues, 67% of U.S. counties will contain fewer prime working aged adults than they did in 1997.
That's a large number.
I mean, so essentially what they're saying is, and there's more to it, but is that the towns that used to exist, kind of like suburbia, and these even Ohio has a lot of these type of towns, just look at what's happening in Lordstown. Is a lot of these areas have shrunk considerably, and they continue to shrink, and that we're going to head to a huge issue. Is we're not going to have, for a lot of areas of this country, workers. We're going to see a lot of dead areas of this country happening.
Yeah.
I know, because I was driving the past couple of days, and I was looking, and the number of vacant, what would you call those? Like
storefronts?
Yeah, storefronts, buildings in general,
yeah,
that are vacant and have sat there for many, many months now is unbelievable. And we're talking about like prime real estate that is like on the main road, with gets tons and tons of traffic every day, every week, every month. And they sit there and they're empty, and they continue to be empty. And then you have Lordstown closing, or idling as they say, and it's just going to get worse. The houses that are going for sale in this area. I mean, you're taking an already dead city, and you're, injecting it in sort of a rapid decline, to the point that, honestly, if this continues, I would say within 5 years, it's going to look like an old Western ghost town. And it's nonsense to say that our country is full. It's not.
Yeah, but let me ask you a question. Whose fault is it in Lordstown? I mean, it wasn't like General Motors announced 3 weeks ago, we're closing the plant. They made that announcement quite a long time ago. Why didn't the city say, hey?
Because there's nothing else here, Bill. And that's true for a lot of cities. Lordstown, a lot of people, after the steel mills industry closed, a lot of people relied on Lordstown for the jobs and to pump up the local economy. They paid very well comparative to other places. They were really stable, good jobs, and they were union jobs, so you had some type of protection, and there was no backup plan. And yeah, that is the fault of the local, people running the city, I suppose. But at the same time, it's like, they wanted to attract bigger businesses, like even something like Amazon. But Amazon was only interested in having the access to be like a major hub of being able to transport packages outside of the local area. And this area doesn't offer that. What are you doing?
You're bringing the camera back in focus. For some reason, it out-focused. Well, yeah, but here's the thing.
You know what I mean? So, like, for example, they would never, and it's not just Amazon. A lot of companies would be like that. Why on earth would you move somewhere here?
Okay, but here's a point. My friend Fred deals with a company that buys shopping malls. Now, when a shopping mall closes, a small strip mall or medium-sized mall, the very first thing they do is try to find an anchor tenant. That is someone like a Walmart or something that will bring people to it. Now, Lordstown was what we would call in the industry an anchor industry. It was already there. It was already proving that it had a reliable workforce. And it was the city, I believe, who simply said, well, let's go for Chrysler. Instead of saying, hey, let's go for Walmart. Let's go for these companies. Let's fill up our Main Street. And our advertising will be, look, you've got a market here. These people buy. They work at Lordstown. They make $25 a month, $25 an hour. The city simply said, we want big industry. And they passed the ball. See, there's where the problem was. When Cleveland lost...
Okay, so you have a few issues, though, Bill. The major issue here is the reality of the retail industry in general. The decline from brick and mortar stores. That is just naturally happening because of the internet. It is easier and cheaper most times to go on Amazon or one of the many other sites, buy what you want to, you get it shipped here in 2 days or sometimes less, and people enjoy that. Instead of going to a crowded mall, trying to find a parking spot, trying to get in, get past the crowds, and especially when the weather is bad. So you have that issue.
All right, but wait a minute. Let's take Cleveland. The Cleveland area itself. When the steel mills closed down, it was a shock to the city of Cleveland. The flats basically were deserted and everything else like that. And then the mayor started talking to developers and said, we could sell you this land in the flats real cheap. And you could build bars, restaurants at a very reasonable price. And so pretty soon the flats became the place, the hot spot for the nightclubbers, the 20 and 30-year-olds. We used to go down there all the time. All right. Then they said, okay, we got Playhouse Square. Basically, Playhouse Square was deserted. The major department stores, Sterling Linder's and some of the others, closed down. The theaters, the Allen Theater, was going to be with a wrecking ball. They were going to tear it down. And civic-minded people said, no, let's save it. Today, of course, major orchestras, the Phantom at the Opera is coming. Broadway productions are there. They're constantly booking. As a result, that area is a very lively area. And there are apartments that were built that are now full. People are living in downtown Cleveland. Why? Because they work at the Hannah building 2 blocks away. So even if it's bad weather, They don't have to drive to work. They can walk. And that's a very, very positive thing. In other words, the city of Cleveland accepted its loss and said, how can we change it? Some towns like Youngstown said, well, we've lost the steel mills, and gee, what are we going to do? But we still got Lordstown, so they'll take care of us. Now they've lost Lordstown because they weren't thinking ahead.
Is it, Bill, what is the largest employer in Cleveland?
I don't know.
Cleveland Clinic. By a huge margin.
All right.
They employ almost 33,000 people.
Okay.
The next biggest employer, do you know who it is?
BP?
University hospitals. They employ almost 15,000 people. Youngstown doesn't have anything like that. There's nothing here that is enabling to prop up the local economy.
Do you have a hospital?
Outside of Lordstown.
Do you have a hospital?
Now Lordstown's gone.
Do you have a hospital?
Yes, but it's a drop in the bucket compared to Cleveland Clinic or University Hospital.
Then what the city should have done is take the profits from Lordstown, which were making them money, and try to convert that hospital to a first-class hospital so that it would become an area trauma center for other cities real nearby. So they didn't have to go to Cleveland for trauma care. They could have a class 1 trauma center.
They have that, Bill.
Now,
it's still not as big as Cleveland Clinic.
All right, now here's the thing. What the Cleveland Clinic did was they realized that the neighborhood they were in, which was a white neighborhood when they started the Cleveland Clinic way back, but then over the years it became predominantly black, and people began to desert it. So what they did was they bought up property around the Cleveland Clinic, so they were in control of their future. The same thing that Cleveland State University did.
Yeah.
They started buying property up. Same thing that St. Ignatius High School has done. They've expanded so that they were in control now.
You buy up the blight. You raise the prices of the local, the average price of the house because everything looks nicer.
Well, but
so you're giving back into the economy.
Look at Ohio Village.
The issue is it's a vicious cycle, though, Bill. Is you lose the steel mills, okay?
Yeah.
You kind of get over that. You then focus on Lordstown and trying to use that money that you're paying people to pump up the economy. But you're no longer a major hub because you don't have an airport. You have little airports, but Cleveland also has an airport, a major airport that Youngstown cannot build.
Does Youngstown have land that they could build a larger airport?
To that size, no, and nor do they have the money. They never had that type of money.
Well, money's not the biggest problem because you can
but it is, Bill, because you need money to make money.
I know, but you can also go to the federal government and say, "Hey, this is what we want to do," and the federal government says, "Oh, here's a grant." Okay.
And I'm not disagreeing or arguing that the city of Youngstown or even other cities like that have not grossly mismanaged themselves.
Yeah.
You'll get no argument from me from that. But the reality is when you don't have access to the type of funding or the ability to make yourself a destination of sort of like if you think of it like a spoke, is okay, well, here's a central location and everything flies out of here.
Right.
If you can't do that, then you can't attract other companies. So you're not going to get people that aren't, already here to come here. And then you have to look at it like, okay, well, Lordstown's closed. So all those people have now left. So you've shrunk the workforces down. Able-bodied people have had to move or are in the process of moving.
Right. Your tax base is decreased.
Correct.
Okay.
And so it's just a vicious cycle that feeds into each other. And because you don't have that anymore, you're not putting money into the local economy. So places are having to close. So those people are having to find new jobs. and there aren't a lot of good jobs around here. So they're having to move, which is making more of the places close. It's a vicious cycle.
Well, let me ask you.
The biggest hope that they have would be, and I don't know how you do that, would be to attract a major company to give the area a chance to build a brand new facility or factory or whatever it may be. And, a whole bunch of people from local areas would obviously come in and work there. And then that money would slowly trickle down into the local economy.
All right, let me ask you a question. Have you ever heard of the IX Center in Cleveland?
The what?
The IX Center.
No.
Okay, well, it's right by the airport. They do major exhibitions, the auto show, the garden show. They're huge.
Oh, is that the place that runs that, they do like that indoor
amusement park
thing?
Amusement park thing?
Yeah.
Yes.
IX Indoor Amusement Park.
Right.
Yeah, I've heard of that.
Okay, all right.
They always play it on the radio.
All right. Now, before the IX, the Parker brothers bought it, it was vacant for 20 years. Do you know what it used to manufacture? Tanks. During the Second World War, General Motors owned it, and they built tanks. That's why it was such a large building. They would start at the one side, at one end, and out would come a finished tank at the other end. It was a mammoth thing. But when they left, when the war ended, and GM didn't need to make tanks anymore, it was like a vacant thing. I mean, it was just a big open space that nobody knew what to do with it. And the city of Cleveland looked around to local people with money and said, what can we do? So they formed an exploratory committee. And it was the Parker brothers that said, it's large enough to become an exhibition center. So that meant that the downtown exhibition center, the mall, in downtown Cleveland, no longer was hosting the flower show. They were outgrowing their size. So the Parker brothers said to the city of Cleveland, I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll invest to put a structure in here that can do displays. Give us a 15-year lease. And at the end of the 15 years, we'll pay you so much. And then you turn over ownership to us for $1. Well, that's what happened. But the point is that they started bringing exhibitions in, because one of the things that the auto show was looking for, and one of the reasons they still hold it in Cobo Hall in Detroit, is because it's so large. But this building, the IX, is larger than that. So right away, they started getting the flower show, the auto show, the amusement, everything you can think of goes there. And they're making good money. So that's what the city of Cleveland did with the problem. They couldn't stop General Motors from stop making tanks. The war was over. General Motors wasn't making tanks anymore. And all they had was a big vacant location. And that's what I'm trying to get across. Instead of the city sitting there and saying, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? They said, let's see if we can figure out a way, bring some good, talented people. Now, I'm sure in Youngstown, you have some talented business people. The mayor should bring them together and say, okay, we've got Lordstown. It's a problem. What can we do about it? And I doubt if all those great businessmen would sit there and say, nothing. It's a loss. Write it off.
I mean, they've tried to attract other businesses over the years, though. I mean, the Amazon bidding thing happened before Lordstown closed. And you also have to look at the reality. Youngstown had one of the very first sort of, shopping centers in this country.
But did they have a good rail system? Did they have a good rail system in a large airport? No.
A long time ago, they had a rail system.
But what I'm trying to tell you is that they didn't have a large enough airport that the larger planes that Amazon uses. And
correct, and that's why they said no.
Right. Okay.
But that's not going to change when you don't have the money, Bill. The federal government, as much as they like handing out money, are not going to hand out money to Youngstown, Ohio to say, here, build a major airport.
Well, it depends on how you write the grant.
Not when Cleveland and not when Pittsburgh is nearby. Never in a million years would that happen.
You don't know that.
You have to couple that with the fact, like I said earlier, the industry in it of itself is changing. You go to Southern Park Mall, and no, I'm not going to exaggerate here, but at least 20% of their stores are empty.
Mm-hmm.
And we're talking about major stores,
right.
Things like Dillard's, Sears.
It's dying.
JCPenney's is doing pretty poorly. What was that other one? Kaufman's years ago.
Yeah.
They're gone.
Nate Company.
And they're not coming back. And then you have smaller stores that are in the same sort of position that are also failing and falling apart. And you could say, oh, well, attract a company like Walmart or Target or something like that. But the issue with that, Bill, is we already have so many Targets and so many Walmarts. We have those major retailers. It doesn't matter. Just for example, there's a super center Walmart over not too far from me. And it's in a huge plaza with a whole bunch of different companies. Lowe's is on one corner. Walmart is on the other corner. And then in between there is a whole bunch of other different businesses.
Mm-hmm.
3 major businesses in that block of stores. It's Staples or Office Max, one of them. Babies R Us and Packetans.
Now, do you know why? Do you know why they're there?
They're all closing, Bill.
What with Walmart as the anchor store?
Yes. Because those companies in them of themselves, Toys R Us no longer exists.
Right.
So that means Babies R Us is closed.
Right.
Office Max and Staples or Office Depot, I think it's Office Depot down there,
right.
is they could join, so they don't need the redundancy. There's already a Staples in another part of town.
Okay.
And Packetans is closing all of its stores.
Oh, well, okay. So, I mean, these are not reasons for the economy. This is not because of Youngstown. This is because of poor management in their own companies.
Well, yes, correct. But that still hurts the local area because it's already difficult to attract new businesses in because you have a smaller pool of people to bring as far as customers.
Well, I'm not sure.
I don't know. We can move on from this issue. I just think I think we're going to have a very, very, very big problem within the next 20 years.
Well, I'll tell you something. There's a town called, what's this? I just thought of it before. Wait a moment. Hold it. I'm just trying to remember the town. The railroad runs through it. Wyatt Earp was there. What town am I thinking of? My mind.
Wyatt Earp?
Yeah, but there was a town.
In Ohio?
No. This is in Kansas.
Oh, I don't know.
I can't think of the town at the moment. Maybe somebody else can. But it was dying because it was a Wild West town. Okay. And some developers came along and convinced the railroad to please continue to run here. Okay. Then once they built the railroad back up and it was bringing in tourists, okay, into the town, then they contacted Greyhound and said, this is a hub where you can come and pick up passengers and take them to other parts of Kansas. So Greyhound joined. And then somebody said, we've got all this empty farmland that nobody's farming. We can't find farmers. Let's build an airport that will allow medium-sized craft like Key West, Florida. Can't take a 737, 738, but it could take smaller planes, what they call regional feed planes. So people will fly into Atlanta and then get the commuter to fly into Key West. All right. And as a result, Dodge City, okay, is the name of the town. Dodge City, after 1905, was basically destitute. It had a population of about 140 people. It lost its railroad. It did get mail service, but you had to go 20 miles to get anything. There were no merchants, nothing. It was a ghost town, basically. But the people there, this was their home. And they were basically Wild West kind of oriented people that said, we're not going to take this as an answer. We're going to revive this town. It took them 30 years to revitalize this town. And today, Dodge City is a thriving city, not only as a tourist attraction, but with a regional airport, a railroad, Greyhound, and all of these other services that people want. But it still has that homeliness of a Western town. They preserved a lot of the buildings back to the era. And this is an example. A lot of times what happens, and I'm sure Youngstown is one of them, and there's other towns, is they get comfortable, just like a landlord. All of his apartments are rented. So he figures, okay, no reason to advertise. I don't need to advertise. We're full. We're in great shape. And then something happens. I don't know. Maybe the city changes population. Maybe there's other issues. Or the landlord becomes very docile and doesn't repair things on time. Pretty soon vacancies will crop up. Now, where I live, there are no vacancies at the moment, but there's a sign out there that says for rent. It's always out there. So people will come in. And he knows ahead of time who's going to be leaving. And he'll say, well, not this month, but next month, I'll have I'll have an apartment for you. And that's how he keeps this place filled, by letting that sign stay out year round, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And I'm just saying that there are ways in which you can recover. Where when I was living in this other place, when I left, there were 6 vacancies out of 28 units. That's a high absentee rate. And all you have to figure is that each one of these places will say was $600 a month. So $3,600 a month, no rent, no revenue. So that's all I'm saying, but you're right. We can go on to something else. I'm just simply saying that sometimes these things don't crop up overnight. There are warning signs way ahead, but sometimes we get very comfortable. And I'm sure that Lordstown was donating, well, not donating, but paying good property tax. The employees were paying their city income tax. Good revenue was coming in. And the city basically was comfortable. Maybe even had a surplus in their annual budget. And I think that is one of the things there. It's true, though. Sometimes when you have an industry like the steel mills, do you know to this day, the lower flats, the steel mills are still there. They're vacant because it's very difficult to tear down a steel mill, okay, and then change it over to housing, okay? I mean, steel mills are big things, and U.S. Steel still owns it. So it just sits there vacant. And these are the things. But moving on, let's talk about Barr and his testimony today. I don't know if you saw any of it. I know you.
I didn't watch it, but I did watch. I read. I should say read. I didn't watch. I read like an overview.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So it says Attorney General Bill Barr said in House Appropriations Committee on Tuesday that he will be in a position to release Special Counsel Robert Mueller's report within a week, and that it will be color-coded and contain explanatory notes for redactions. Bill said Mueller is currently working with the Justice Department to identify information that falls into the 4 categories he has determined should be redacted. Barr also said that he offered Mueller the opportunity to review his 4-page letter on March 24th, summarizing the principal conclusions of the report, but that Mueller declined. When asked whether he had briefed the White House on the report at any point, Barr declined to answer. Quote, "I've said what I'm going to say about the report today." Pressed on how he could have summarized Mueller's 400-page report in just 48 hours after he received it, Barr said, "The thinking of the special counsel was not a mystery to the people of the Department of Justice prior to his submission of the report. He and his people had been interacting with the deputy attorney in his supervision of the special counsel's office." Asked about reports that the Mueller team was dissatisfied with the 4-page letter, Barr said, I quote, "I suspect that they wanted more put out, but in my view, I was not interested in putting out summaries."
Well, I think this is important. That's the reason why Mueller said, why should I look at these 4 pages? You're not taking my input. You're not going to change it. So why should I waste my time?
This is the issue I have, though. And I've pointed it out to other people because I read a lot, and I'm on Twitter and I'm on Reddit, etc. And maybe we will see this, but if Robert Mueller felt that his report was grossly sort of summarized or grossly redacted or something like that, I feel like at some point it would come out. If he genuinely felt that the President of the United States, if he and his team came to a much more definite decision of, well, it's clear to us that there is very much or could very much be a case here, but that we're not going to go after him, that would come out. And we're not hearing that. We're not seeing that. And maybe that will change, because I know that they asked Robert Mueller to show up for a testimony. But and I'm not saying that William Barr is on the up and up, because I don't believe that. He, did the song and dance to get the job. He got the job, and now we're here where we're at. But at the same time, I don't think the report, even in its entirety, is going to be damaging enough to the president that it truly changes the course of action going forward, or even people's minds.
Well,
I mean, we can talk about nefarious behaviors and disgusting behaviors and improper things and all these awful things, but they may not be illegal things. And I think that's something that a lot of people have not appreciated about sort of what has transpired over the last almost a little over 2 years now since he became president. Is he's done a lot of these things that are awful things and that are borderline probably illegal. I'll be fair, but they're not at the level of, well, we're going to impeach this. As I've said for a while now, he will be punished, if he's punished, at the voter box.
Yeah.
People have to pull the lever against him. And, and I'm going to segue into another point because I think it's interesting, and it talks to sort of our sensibility, I guess, as a country. or like, the mentality of people in this country. New York City declares public health emergency despite safe available measles vaccine. There's a state of emergency in New York City where Mayor Bill de Blasio is particularly begging residents to get their vaccinations after 285 confirmed cases of measles since the fall.
God.
Why it matters. The world's financial capital has declared a public health emergency in the face of a virus that has a safe and effective vaccine. This is the epicenter of a measles outbreak that is very, very troubling and must be dealt with immediately, de Blasio said today. The measles vaccine works, it is safe, it is effective, it is time tested. 21 cases have put people in the hospital, including 5 who needed intensive care, the New York Times reports. National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases Director Anthony Fauci just last month said the current outbreak of measles would certainly overtake all of last year's cases, and he was right. The CDC reported 465 cases as of April 4th, compared with 372 of all of 2018. It was 78 cases in the last week alone. Outbreaks have been reported in New York City, Washington State, Texas, Illinois, and California. New York is threatening fines of up to $1,000 on individuals in certain areas who do not get their kids vaccinated. The bottom line, the spread of measles can be controlled if enough people are vaccinated. The World Health Organization says the magic number is between 93% and 95% of people.
Yeah.
And in addition to this, I was reading today that these stupid idiot parents in this country who refuse to vaccinate their children are now doing a thing where it's kind of like chicken pox, where they'll take their kids to get purposely infected with chicken pox. They are now doing measles parties. Are people retarded?
No, because but what they're saying is let the immunity system.
That's not how it works, Bill.
I know that.
You have to vaccinate your children.
Well, no. To be honest with you,
it's mind-boggling.
Hold it. If someone gets measles that isn't vaccinated, and they recover, they are now immune to the measles vaccine again, to measles. The system builds up an immunity. What happens sometimes is the immunity system isn't strong enough to overcome the virus, and therefore
Correct.
That causes
you start spreading it.
Well, I'm not saying you're spreading it, but the problem is that the child or whoever gets it can eventually die from it because their immune system isn't able to combat it. I mean, when you get a cold, for instance, your body will eventually kill the virus that's causing the cold. Okay, that's one of the beautiful things about our immunity system that people don't realize. But you're right. The vaccine is to prevent the problem in advance. Okay, and
so you don't spread it.
Right, and it's a wise thing.
Yes. Correct. The problem is we're not just talking. It just happens to be the issue now, but we're not talking about just measles vaccination.
Right.
They're not vaccinating their children for anything.
Right.
So it's just a matter of time till some of these diseases that we've all but eradicated start coming back.
Right.
And you're exactly right. It's not these selfish parents that are usually the victims here. It's the people who have suppressed immunities for whatever reason. They could be old, they could have some type of cancer, they could have some type of disease, whatever it may be, or they could be really young. And they are the ones getting harmed by this. And I'm not a big believer in government overreach, and I think there is danger and worry there that if you sort of mandate vaccinations, it's a slippery slope. But I think one thing they should do, and I know it was the case for when I went to school, that if you are not vaccinated, you cannot go to school.
And I think that was right. That wasn't federal. That was a local,
Yes, I agree.
a rule.
And I think it should be a federal thing.
Well, then you'd call overreach. The thing is, maybe it should be mandated by the federal government that all school systems may not take a student in unless they've had the basic vaccinations. Okay? And then leave it up to the school, because you're right.
And then we'll just get into the big issue with kids being homeschooled and stuff like that. But we got to do more. This is getting ridiculous. This misinformation that is spreading around about nonsense. Oh, there's Korean vaccinations. It's a bunch of gobbledygook.
Would any of that come from the White House? I don't think so.
Yeah.
No, Donald wouldn't spread a false rumor like that.
Maybe he has, and I just haven't seen. But I'd imagine he's one of those type of people that would like, oh, well, people don't want to vaccinate their children. The government shouldn't tell them to.
Well, he's the one that said that windmills cause cancer.
Yeah, because he's an idiot.
You remember, you're maybe too young, but I remember when cell phones first came out, there became a big issue about, at that time,
I remember that.
Cell phones did not have speakers. So you had to put it up to your ear to hear. Okay. And they were saying that the radiation generated by the cell phone that close to the brain could cause cancer. Well, of course, you can imagine right away that the cell phone industry is going, the manufacturers are going, what? So they spent a lot of money and had the thing tested. And medical experts came out and said, bullshit. There's no correlation. That's not going to cause cancer. And they said that the cell phone would have to radiate something like, I don't know how many joules of radiation in order to affect the person. And the cell phone could never do that. So that issue died. But we have the same thing now. Okay, when some idiot sits in the White House and says windmills cause cancer. Okay. I mean, and there are people out there that will say, well, the president said this, his base, and that he wouldn't lie to us, so it must be true. Even though scientific evidence comes out and says there's nothing to it, they say, well, I don't want to read that because that's false. That's false news. The president said it. So they're the idiots. Okay? And you're right. I think 2020, I don't think there will be an impeachment. But 2020, people will go to the ballot box. And I wouldn't be a bit surprised if whoever the Democratic nominee is, they won't sweep the country like Ronald Reagan did.
Take things for granted, though, Bill.
Huh? What'd you say?
What?
You said something about that won't
happen.
I
said don't take things for granted in that don't assume that he's going to lose or that's going to be easy.
Well, I think that the American people as a whole, you got to realize that his base has been shrinking. He's getting less and less support, including congressmen, senators. Republican senators are becoming frustrated because they don't know what's babbling out of his mouth. They're not being consulted and told, look, I want to take this policy. I want to do this. I want to do that. I need your support.
They're still protecting him, Bill.
Some of them are, but some of them are getting tired because they're worrying about their own reelection and what the American people are going to say to them. Oh, you hang around with that idiot. We don't want you. We want somebody that knows what's going on. So a lot of these senators are now concerned that they may not get reelected because they've been so aligned with the president and the screwiness of what he's been doing. I mean, he ordered that the border at El Paso, which is one of the major ports of entry, be closed. And his Secretary of State and Homeland Security Secretary said, no, that's stupid. You can't do that. It's illegal. Finally, the president backed down. Okay? And then he fired her. because he didn't like her answer. I mean, that's the whole thing. And the other thing is this: the acting, the one that would be second, the director of ICE resigned. So they brought a new guy in, and Donald Trump pulled his nomination. You know why? Because he wasn't a yes man. Donald wants to be around people that, regardless of what he says, they'll just respond with, yes, master, whatever you want, master, I'll do it for you. He wants a bunch of slaves working for him that will do whatever he wants. And he's finding it's difficult to fix these posts with permanent people because nobody wants to work for this White House. They don't want it on their resume. I served for 8 months and then I was fired because I refused to let him do an illegal act. Okay? This is sad. Very sad, folks. It's a very, very sad point about our history. We're going through hell. We're going through hell thanks to this president. And we wonder from a theological standpoint, you know, there's always the old argument, why does God allow evil? The answer is God doesn't allow it or disallow it. We have free will. The American people, or I should say the Electoral College, elected Donald Trump. Okay? The American people voted in certain states and gave him enough electoral votes to win the election, even though the popular vote was 3 million more for the other candidate. So God's saying, look, what are you blaming me for? You appointed him. You elected him.
Anyway, we're not going to get into religion.
So he's your hell. Don't blame me for it. It's not my fault. All right. Go on to something else.
And something that we could file under about time, Bernie Sanders, now a millionaire, pushes to release tax returns by Monday.
Is that going to be a problem for him trying to tell everybody that he's for the poor person?
Because I think, and I'm not a big Bernie fan. I mean, I like him and I like progressive ideas, but I think it's not going to be a problem in it because of this. Is if he was making the argument that, well, we shouldn't be taxing the rich more or that we shouldn't be doing this, then yeah, it seems hypocritical. But the fact that he is saying, no, you guys should be taxing me more. I should be paying more in taxes. I should be paying this and that, and I shouldn't have these loopholes. I don't think you can make an effective argument against him.
But he hasn't said that. He hasn't said that.
Yes, he has, Bill.
All right.
His whole platform is based upon the idea that
we should tax the 1.5%.
A secretary in percentage-wise is paying much more than the millionaire CEO that she works for.
Yeah, but what I'm trying to say,
that's the crux of his argument.
Yeah, but he's saying that the 0.5% of the super wealthy should be taxed, which wouldn't affect him.
I think if you really read what he's saying, he's talking about all people over a certain amount of money. I've seen 250,000 thrown out. I've seen 400,000 thrown out. Would end up paying more than they do currently, which he would fall under.
All right.
The reality is his policies, his ideas, his plans would not, if he was able to put them into full effect, he, in his capacity of his money, would be pinged. I mean, that's the reality of it. So I don't think that argument's going to work.
All right.
I mean, that's my opinion. We'll see. We'll see how things come. I'm sure Republicans will absolutely make it one. Oh, well, look at Bernie. He's a millionaire. Look at him in his houses and stuff.
Yeah.
But I don't think it'll hold water. We'll see, though.
When he releases his tax returns, what do you think he paid in taxes? I have a figure, but you tell me what you think his tax, what his net income was
I
for
don't know.
taxes.
I mean, I probably lower than he makes the argument we should be paying.
I think
I
it'll
don't
be
know.
less than,
I don't know what percentage, so we'll have to
I
find out
think it'll be
Monday.
less than 25,000 to $50,000 maximum. Okay,
Do I think about that?
which would be 5% of his net worth if he was worth only $1 million.
Could be. I genuinely don't think he's paid more than he should have, or paid like the exact rate. But I don't know that, I don't know what he's paid.
Well, we'll find out when he releases his tax return.
Yep.
If he releases it. Who knows? He may be under audit too. Oh, I was just getting ready to release it, but I got a notice from the IRS.
Yeah.
I'm under audit.
What a bunch of garbage.
Oh, sure. All right. What else is new? Come on.
Well, Bill, you could cover some.
I've been listening to
I'll
you.
cover one more for you.
I have enjoyed listening to you, sir.
Nah, I'll cover one more for you. Let's see which one I want to pick here. Oh, that's pretty. Speaking of taxes, that's a nice segue. Congress is about to ban the government from offering free online tax filing. Thank TurboTax. Just in time for tax day, the for-profit tax preparation industry is about to realize one of its long-sought goals. Congressional Democrats and Republicans are moving to permanently bar the IRS from creating a free electronic tax filing system. Last week, the House Ways and Means Committee, led by Rep. Richard Neal of Massachusetts, passed the Taxpayer First Act, a wide-ranging bill making several administrative changes to the IRS that is sponsored by Representative John Lewis and Representative Mike Kelly. In one of its provisions, the bill makes it illegal for the IRS to create its own online system of tax filing. Companies like Intuit, the maker of TurboTax, and H&R Block have lobbied for years to block the IRS from creating such a system. If the tax agency created its own program, which would be similar to programs others developed countries have, it would threaten the industry's profits. So that's
well, we'll see if it
real
gets
nice
passed.
country to live in.
All right, let's go to another subject. America is full. According to Donald Trump, we're full. We don't have any.
No, I read that one, Bill.
Oh, okay. We have no more space. Okay. New York health crisis. You want to order that one?
Got that one.
You did the tax thing. Border
the
crossings.
The last three ones you could cover.
All right. Border crossings in March reached highest level in a decade. Now, part of this, folks, is that there is turmoil in the Southern Triangle. Okay, that's part of the problem. The second part is that Donald Trump was always talking about making America great. He was basically advertising that America is a great place to live. Of course, when people heard that and started to migrate up here, he said, no, I don't want you people. Okay? You're not going to make America great. You're hurting America. But yet, if we didn't have these illegals doing the jobs that Americans will not do, you would find your grocery store vegetable department very bleak. And a lot of the things that we love, we wouldn't have, because you're not going to get a high school kid to go out and work for $7 an hour picking cotton in 105-degree temperature 7 days a week and living in a shack with a bunch of people that don't speak English. He don't want that job. So you're not going to get Americans to take their jobs. And they're not taking American jobs either. They're glad to get work. So the agricultural industry is gladly able to take them. and gladly able to use them. Of course, Donald doesn't seem to realize that, because I'm sure he doesn't do the ordering at the White House, and he doesn't know what the price of corn is, or beef, or any other product. Probably doesn't even know what it costs to buy a cheeseburger from McDonald's, because somebody probably buys it for him. Okay? But here's the guy that's saying, hey, these people are stealing your jobs. They're criminals, rapists, murderers, which has been proven false. So these people are looking for a better life. Now, his former DH secretary, Nielsen, she signed an agreement with these three countries down there to give them more foreign aid. Then Donald Trump stabbed her in the back and said, no, I'm going to eliminate the foreign aid down there until they do something about their country. So what's happening? The people down there are not fleeing because they're saying, oh, I'd love to see what America looks like. They're fleeing in many cases for their lives, because they live in fear. They live in constant fear that the military are going to come in and rape the women and the kids or kill them. So they're fleeing for their lives. And as a result, they're going to the closest border they know, which is Mexico. And Mexico is saying, welcome. We'll give you free passage through our country so you can get to America. And the whole point of the matter is that when you've advertised this announcement repeatedly, it's just like an advertising agency keeps saying, come to Key West. You'll love it. Do you know that since they put their ad campaign in, Key West travel tourism has increased by 35%? Advertising is effective. Okay? We're the land of opportunity. So when the president says we're closed, he's an idiot again. Like we don't have room? No. The problem is, Mr. President, that instead of spending that money that Congress gave you that you haven't put at the wall, you haven't put it to hiring 1,000 more border agents. Are you going to tell me you can't find them? There's nobody out there qualified? You simply haven't hired the people to expand. It's like a business that says, oh, I can't take a big order. We don't have enough employees. Well, hire more and accept the large contract. What Donald's saying is, no. We can't take that larger contract because we don't have the employees. But we're not going to hire people. No business would survive if they didn't look at that as a positive problem. We just get an order for $100 million of jeans. So you're going to hire more people, more sewing machines. You're going to buy stuff so that you can get out this $100 million order. Donald's saying, no, that's stupid. That won't solve your problem. The businessman is saying, what are you talking about, Mr. President? That's how you solve problems. And so you have this stupidity where he won't hire the people to help alleviate the problem. It's amazing that if we suddenly had 1,000 criminals break out of a jail or a prison for some reason, a prison break, and they rounded them all up, but there was so much damage to the old prison, do you think the government would say, well, we just got to leave them here? I mean, we can't put them anywhere. No, they would build a detention center like overnight to house these people until the prison was fixed. Why can't the president do that? and say increase, okay, the facilities. Why? Because he doesn't want to. He wants to make life as miserable and as uncomfortable as possible, so that some of these people will turn around and say, we made the trip for nothing. I guess we'll have to stay in Mexico. And then Trump says, see how I'm solving the problem, folks? I've stopped the flow. This guy doesn't care about human people. He never has cared about anybody but himself. It was like asking yourself this. Jarrett, his son-in-law, goes to Saudi Arabia, and some hostile group decides to kidnap him and take him hostage. Do you think Donald Trump would sit there and ignore the problem and say, well, hey?
I don't think so.
No. He would send 100 troops in there, military special forces, and say, get my son-in-law back. I don't care what the price is. I don't care how many of you get killed. That's what I want. Because that would be something that he cares about. But if he doesn't care about it, like some of these other people that have been captured, State Department says we're working on it. Trump's not pushing them and saying, get it fixed. Get these people home. Do what's necessary until the publicity gets so bad that he's forced to do something. That's the only way Trump reacts. When the forces, outside forces, get so strong that they just go at him, and finally he has a mental breakdown. And so, okay, I'll do it. So the border crossings will increase, but it's Donald's problem. Munchin reveals White House lawyers consulted Treasury on Trump's tax returns, despite having meant to limit political involvement. Yeah, another situation. So you're sitting down with his people, advising them what you, as the Secretary of the Treasury, are going to do to prevent Donald Trump's tax returns because you work for Donald Trump. And yet you're a public servant working for us. Not working for Donald, you're working for us. We're paying your taxes. We're paying your bills. But again, politics. Now, Trump's Federal Reserve nominee. This is classic. This is typically Trump. His nominee, Stephen Moore, has admitted and appeared on conservative panels over the economy, saying, I really know nothing about the Federal Reserve. I know nothing about it, really.
He's not an expert on monetary policy.
Right. But Donald says, that's okay. You don't have to be an expert. Now, probably in 3 months from now, we'll find out the guy's got a criminal record, because that's what goes next. I don't know anything about the job. Well, look at Ben Carson. Okay? Put him in charge of HUD. Why not put him in charge of health services, where a doctor would be useful? No, you put him in HUD. That's why we never hear from him. Because he's sitting at his desk every day going, what am I doing? What am I doing? So that's typically Donald. So the fact that he appoints this Steve Moore with no credentials, no expertise, is totally normal for Trump. He doesn't want somebody to know, because he wants to put another person on the Fed board that he can control and tell him, hey, don't raise the interest rates. It'll be bad for the economy. Or this is bad, or that's bad. And the guy will go, yes, Mr. President, thank you. Thank you for helping me. I didn't understand that, but thank you. Now I understand that. So I'll follow your advice. That's what he wants. He just wants people to say yes to him and to kiss his ring. And these people are getting tired because sometimes if they kiss his ring too much, then he turns around and says, hey, you're doing such a good job at kissing my ring. Why don't you kiss my ass? And some of these people say, wait a minute, Mr. President. That's going beyond my description. I don't mind kissing your ring, but not your butt. Donald says, okay, you're out of here. The worst thing that you can get, the mark of death from the President of the United States, is a compliment. Being told you're doing a great job and you're really great with the service to our country. Whoever hears that, whoever he directs it to, better be updating their resume, because that means I'm kicking you out. He's done it all the time. He said that Rex Tillerson was great. He said that Kelly was great. He praised the DH person doing a great job. He praised the Secret Service. They're the best in the world. That's why I fired the head of the Secret Service. Why? Because he was doing a great... How did he do a great job yesterday, Mr. President? Today he's not. What happened overnight? Okay. I don't know. I mean, sometimes the Secret Service has repeatedly told him that he should not keep going to Malargo. It's too hard a place. It's too large a place.
Well, I mean, look, and I'm not going to get into that story tonight. I think maybe next time we'll talk about it because it's ever evolving.
I've got to do
that
something.
Story about the Chinese woman.
Keep talking. I've got to do something. So I'm going to be off camera for a moment. But you keep talking.
You're killing me here, Bill.
The Chinese woman.
Yes, the Chinese woman down in Mar-a-Lago. It's ever evolving. Basically, that it's almost like, who the heck are we hiring? The Secret Service agent that arrested her took her flash drive, plugged it into a computer, and then his computer started doing weird things. No crap. And when they arrested her and then they went back to her hotel room, she had like these devices to find hidden cameras. She had multiple cell phones, multiple computers, and nobody knows who she is. And I mean, the story is just getting crazier and crazier. And it's like, imagine what else they've done down there. You know, that this just happened. I mean, just by the luck of luck, she was discovered and arrested.
Well, you know what? I think she made a mistake. She should have gone in there and said that she had a Chinese order and gotten the name of somebody working there and said she was delivering it, and then she would have been given free access all over the place. But she didn't do
I
that.
was reading, I was reading, and they were like, I think it was like that. She acted at first like she couldn't speak English, or like it was really broken English. And then when she didn't get what she wanted, her English got better. And then when she was arrested, she could no longer speak English again.
No, that makes sense. That's a little bit like Donald. When he gets boxed in, he shuts up. He can't talk. No, the thing is that, you know, the Secret Service can't be everywhere on that property. It's a massive property. Okay? And they simply can't be everywhere. Plus the fact that Donald roams through that place. And he doesn't tell Secret Service, I'm going here or there. Sometimes they find out he's someplace, you know, like in the restaurant, or he's out in the garden, or he's somewhere else. And they like, well, Mr. President, please tell us when you do these things so that we can put somebody out there, people out there for you. Yeah, okay, I'll do that. And then he proceeds not to do it the next time. And this creates havoc for them because they're being asked to protect a man who's simply saying, I don't give a shit. I'll do what I want to do. I don't care about you people. Which doesn't make any sense considering, maybe he's got a death wish. Maybe he hopes somebody will take a shot at him. I don't know. I can't understand the guy. Okay? Because the common ordinary thing, common sense is something that somehow, some way, Donald Trump has never learned. He's never learned common sense. It's almost like it's unknown to him. He doesn't know how to use common sense. He does things on impulse, which you and I both know is dangerous. It's like giving a gun to a 5-year-old that's loaded and say, go and have fun. And get surprised.
I'm gonna take my dogs out and do a few things. So I'm gonna leave you now. I'm gonna step out.
Are you coming back, or should I leave it at 1:30? I think I'll leave it at 1:30.
9:30. You can leave at 9:30. Wait, I'm not gonna come back to a few things.
All right, I'll leave in 4 minutes. Okay.
Okay, sounds good. And just to let people know, if they're listening, are we doing anything tomorrow, or what are we doing?
Yeah, we're gonna be on You Now tomorrow.
Okay, You Now at 8:00.
Right.
Tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
All right, sounds good, Bill.
All right, have a good night. Thanks for the show notes.
Talk to you tomorrow, Bill.
All right, bye-bye. One of these days, this poor kid's going to get a job. No, Deb is great. He does show notes, which means he gives me data, and he really donates a lot of his time and energy to both You Now and YouTube. He's really a great person. And of course, we always have OTC, who is kind of our observer. When conversations get a little slow, OT gets in there and kind of livens it up a little bit, and everything else like that. So this is wonderful. But tonight is a slow night. Not sure why. It's Tuesday night. But we are going to be on You Now tomorrow night at 8:00. So go to You Now. You should have the link. It's repeated it many times. Go there, and you should be able to pick us up and enjoy the show. Okay? Just type in Talking Head. It'll direct you there. All right. Listen, folks, we're going to end tonight. We thank you for being here. And for those of you that are going to watch the broadcast later, okay, tell your friends to have them come in. We're broadcasting tentatively right now on Tuesday and Thursday on YouTube, and then Monday, Wednesday, and Friday tentatively scheduled on You Now. Okay, just to give you an idea. So tomorrow night, You Now, 8 p.m., we'll be broadcasting. Until then, have a good night. Peace to everybody. Take care. Bye-bye.